Welcome to the PFO channel. I'm Jim. One of our viewers left a comment asking for some specific information about the sizes of the window panes that we used when we put together this Victorian greenhouse here from old windows. Let's have a closer look. All these windows across the front, not counting the door surround at the moment, but these 6 on this side and the 6 on this side, these are all the pieces which were from double hung windows. So these were together with the triple pane on the top and the single pane on the bottom in the old house that they came out of. So these are all going to be the same width. And you can see that the sash itself is 24 inches wide, and that's the same up here, but I've put some batten strips to cover the seams on the top part, and I haven't on the bottom because the bottom ones, as you recall in the other video, these swing out. So I couldn't put battens on those. So the bottom and the top sash are both 24 inches. The bottom sash is 30 inches high, and the top sashes are 29 inches. So we've got 24 by 30s on the bottom and 24 by 29s on the top. And that is the same around on this end, which faces our house. We've got a set of 2 on either side of this door. And you can see here that these are also the 24, and on the top here they're 24 inches wide, 29 tall, 30 tall on the bottom. And you can see on the end here, if this hydrangea wasn't in the way, you can see that the upper windowsill along the front is even with the windowsill on the side, and then the windows start at the same level. So these are a perfect match with the upper sashes and the lower sashes on the front and around this end here towards the house. On this end, these are a little bit more of a mix and match. This particular one, this is a much more modern sash, and this is one of the old antique sashes, but they are both 24, and you can see by the wide gap, or the wide sash on this side and the narrow on this. This was part of a double hung, but it's a modern design. This would have been a 30-inch wide by 24-inch tall sash in its original double hung condition, but I turned it on its edge because I wanted 24 wide and 30 tall, and I was willing to overlook the disparity between the sash thickness on the 2 sides of it here. And then on the top, we didn't have 4 more of the 29-inch tall upper sashes. You can see these stop up here, so these are 27-inch. These are 2 inches shorter than the ones along the front and the other side, but they're still 24 inches. So on this end, I've got 24-inch wide by 30-inch tall on the bottoms and 24-inch wide by 27-inch tall on the top. And if you don't walk around from the front to the end like I just did and do a close comparison, we still have symmetry from side to side on the doors on this end, and it's a close enough match to the others. If you look through the windows here to the opposite end, you really can't tell because of the perspective that those are taller windows down there, but what does stand out is that they're the same 3-pane uppers and single pane lowers. So there's good symmetry and coordination from end to end. Let's look at the back of the greenhouse. On the back of the greenhouse, I had pretty much run out of the tall double hung setups, but I had, I think from a different source, I had these windows that are a 4-pane sash, and I had 3 of those here, and so I stacked those. So these are a 19-inch tall, and they're about a 34-inch wide. So these ones are oriented horizontally, as I'm sure they were in the original house, but these are 19 tall and 34 wide. When you add in the windowsill dividers between each layer, it came out to a 60-inch height. So I was able to keep that same. I need to step back here to see the effect of that. From this angle, it's still aesthetically pleasing, and it doesn't start to look like a hodgepodge of windows, which was the one thing I really wanted to avoid with this build. The next section then is the section without glass. That's the only section on the greenhouse with no glass, and that's where the farmhouse sink and the shelf unit is inside. So then let's get down past that to the next piece. And you can see we got a lot of very active ivy going on back here. So these big 15 light sashes here, you can see they're 3 wide and 5 tall. And this sash matches the one down there on the end. Those were literally a find on garbage night. I just left work. I fortunately had my pickup truck, and I picked those up out of the side of the road out to somebody's trash, and managed to get them home without breaking any of the window panes. You can see that these old windows require a lot of glazing putty redos on that. I can see this is going to be ready to redo again pretty soon. I've done that a couple times. So that sash is a 58-inch wide and a 58-inch tall. So I made the rough openings the same 60-inch. So this is a 60 by 60 rough opening, and that kind of maintains my 60-inch stack height for each set of windows. Here's a couple of more. These are some mix and match from who knows where, and these are 29-inch wide by 29.5 tall. And both of those are the same, I believe, and 29 wide. So these are 29 by 29. And again, with the width between the separation between them, I was able to keep the 60-inch top to bottom on that to match the height of the two 15 light sashes that are on either side of this. And if you're thinking, wow, that sure is convenient that you just happen to have windows that were all exactly the right sizes to maintain that 60-inch stack height all the way around this thing, well, as I mentioned in the previous video, I collected up old windows for over 20 years to get enough of these to build this. So my collection of windows has, look at the light, I'm distracted by the sun coming through the crystals on that chandelier. Anyway, yeah, my collection, my 20-year collection of windows has a lot more windows in it than what are represented here on the final greenhouse. So it wasn't so much a matter of lucking out and having just the right size windows. It was just piecing it together. And when I designed this, I literally took my stack of windows and I measured up everything I had, and I just started playing like a jigsaw puzzle to see how they would all fit together. Thought I should clarify that because I didn't want this to come across as falling together more easily than it actually did. There was a lot more work and thought went into it than just stack up the windows and oh gosh, they all just happened to end up 60 inches high. All right, where were we? So I haven't talked about the bump out yet. Holy cow, and I haven't talked about the hornet nest up there that needs to be dealt with. So you know what, I'm going to do the measuring on this other side because there's not another hornet nest on this side. So these side windows here on the bump out, those are storm windows, the old style, back before the day of self-stowing storm windows where you just slide them up and down depending on whether you want the screen or the storm. You used to have to go out and physically hang storm windows. You had to take off the screens that were a sash like this with screens in it, and you'd store your screens in the garage somewhere and get out the storm windows and have to go out there and actually change them a couple times a year. But that's what these are. These are old storm windows. These are going to be really hard to find these days because there's just less and less of them being taken off and discarded. These are 26 inches wide and 55 tall. So 26 by 55 storm windows on both sides of the bump out. And that's the perfect time to come and talk about this end here. The gable ends, if you can tell from that center, that looks very familiar to that there, because the gable ends are made of old storm windows. And what I did with those is I measured the slope that I needed to match the rafters, and I used my glass cutting skills to cut the required angle on the glass. But all of these, including the little end ones are the pieces that I cut off the top of these storms. That little one there probably came from the top of this one, and as did that one, came off the top of this. And I think this one here was the bottom half of that one there. So this entire gable end is made out of those old storm windows. Now this gable end is a little bit different, and the main reason for that is because I had this big sash in the center here. And what is that? That's it's gonna be hard to measure. My ladder. So that's what's that? 41.5 inch and 50 inches tall. So that's a 50-inch tall by 41.5 inch wide sash in the center there. And that was almost a perfect fit for that stained glass window, which is actually just hanging on the inside of the greenhouse in front of that big end sash. Well, because that is so much wider than the storm windows, that threw off my spacing. So I've got the angled storm windows to the right of it and to the left of it, and then I had a little bit left over there, and I just filled that in with some 2x12. The final piece is the door surround. And you see this is a standard 36-inch wide vintage door, and I do repaint that quite often. It's always a trade-off between having the shabby look and the chippy paint, yet having enough paint on it to protect it. But I repaint that every few years. But the sun does a great job of making it look aged in a big hurry, so I don't have to wait long to get that chippy look back. The side lights are 20-inch wide by 68 tall. 20-inch wide by 68 tall. And the overall width of the whole door surround, window to window, is 89 inches. So that's 7 foot 5 inches wide. You can see that the arched oval over the door, that's also 79 inches wide from outside to outside, and it's 3 pieces. And that main centerpiece is about a 31-inch tall sash. And that's the door surround that we found in the loft of the barn when my daughter and her husband bought a place that was an 1880s vintage farmhouse and outbuildings. And that was the one piece that started the whole ball rolling on finally putting this thing together. All right, I think that covers all the windows. Ooh, it's warm in here today. So this is a 70-inch wide set. And this is a 72-inch wide set of doors. And I've got these all hinged. I think I mentioned in the other video, I hinged these outward. And I've got the little sliders to keep them in place. And I put those top and bottom. So other than some windows hanging around just for show, that pretty much covers all of the window and door sizes that I used in this greenhouse. Thank you to the viewer who asked that question. I'm always happy to answer questions like that. So if you have anything you'd specifically like to know about this, just leave a comment and ask, and I'll see what I can do about answering it. Thanks a lot for watching. BFO channel out.